Awesome. I think we will get started. We have a lot that we want to talk about today. So, hello everyone. Welcome to our event, To Social or Not to Social. My name is Wyatt Tinder. My pronouns are he, him, and I lead marketing and communications at Milwaukee. I've been with Milwaukee since 2018. We are an engagement agency that helps organizations build new transformational experiences to engage candidates and customers. I'm so excited to moderate today's panel discussion, which features Shane Krangle, president and co-founder of Margot Media, Jessica Summerfield, talent acquisition marketing manager at Advocate Aurora Health, and Andrea Sock, founder and principal of Sock Influencer PR. They each have a unique perspective on this topic, so we're so excited to have each of them with us. For a little context on this event, Milwaukee really wanted to have a conversation as a response to some of the recent controversies and events that have impacted both individual and business relationships to social media, including the antitrust lawsuit surrounding Facebook and Meta, now Meta, and politicians talking about breaking up big tech, the spread of misinformation on social media platforms, especially around the 2020 election, the Facebook and its subsidiaries, like the outage that happened in October of 2021, as well as Apple's restriction on targeting some of its users. So there's a lot that's been going on in the social media space, and we really wanted to have a conversation around all of that. While this event is called To Social or Not to Social, I don't know that any of us on the panel today are going to explicitly say not to use social media. However, we hope that you leave with some insights on how social media can fit into your overall marketing strategy, maybe some mistakes that you can avoid, and some trends to watch out for in the future within the context of some of these broader things that are happening in the news. As we go along today, please feel free to use the chat function if you have any questions. We will try to save some time at the end of the discussion for Q&A. So with that, I'd like to give each of our panelists a moment to introduce themselves. Starting with Andrea, can you please share your name and a little bit about your organization?
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. Like Wyatt said, I'm Andrea Soak. I'm the founder and principal of Soak Influencer PR. And I started this business really because I saw the power of PR and influencer marketing working together, and that they should work together and they're more powerful together. So I work with clients in a lot of different industries. Some may come to me just for PR or just for influencer marketing, and I try to convince them to do both. So I'm really excited to be with you all, hopefully answer any questions. And I will say, I'm really pleased to be with these amazing panelists as well.
Wonderful. Jessica?
Hi, thank you. Also very happy to be here today. So my name is Jessie Summerfield, and I work for Advocate Aurora Health, one of the larger healthcare organizations in the Midwest. And my role is recruitment marketing, which means I'm basically like a little mini marketing team of one for all of talent acquisition. So really trying to promote our employment brand and our jobs, make sure that people know that we're a great place to work, and also just get the message out there about the different openings that we have, which are plenty these days. And though I've been in this role for about 4.5 years, I did similar work previously. So I've been in the kind of social media marketing space for about 10 years.
Oh, and Shane?
Thanks for being patient. I was at my office, had to run home. We don't have internet over there. So my name is Shane. It is spelled a little unique there, but Shane Krangle. I am the founder of Margot Media. We are in the 3rd Ward. I have a little bit different of a story probably than most. Previously, I served 8 years in the Marines. I was in the infantry. I was not a marketing guy at all, but somewhere around 2012, I started to teach myself a lot on social media. I started consulting. I traveled a ton internationally while kind of being a digital nomad, and then came home and started Margot 5 years ago out of my apartment. Proud to say now we have just over 20 full-time employees locally in Wisconsin. We represent North Shore Bank. We do all their digital marketing, Cousin Subs, Waterstone Bank, a bunch of others. And we are just a digital marketing agency. So Traditional agencies cover the whole spectrum. We wanted to be hyper-focused just on anything social media and Google related. And I'm honored to be on here and share my thoughts.
Wonderful. Thank you to each of you. Let's get started with talking a little bit about what you each aim to do with social media in regards to your companies or your clients' overall strategy and digital presence. Maybe do you want to kick us off, Shane?
Yeah, so I'm not going to try to steal Andrea's thunder, but we're probably going to be really in agreement on everything going forward in regards to strategy. I think the biggest mistake, that a lot of companies make is they don't have a strategy. Their relationship with social media, when they typically come to us, is they're doing it because they know they have to, but they don't actually really have a plan for why they're doing what they're doing. And then that leads to a lot of waste, ad spend waste, and just overall employee time waste. And I think that's where a lot of companies have frustrations is I can understand how if you don't have a plan, it can look like this money is just going into an abyss of nothingness and not creating true value, right? And so I always say the best way we leverage social media for our clients is to start with a strategy. And I'll end with and then kick it over to everyone else. Strategy for us, I'm a pretty blunt guy. I was a Marine, so no fluff in my game. I know strategy for a lot of people, they think it's just some like dollars flying into the air that we have to charge for onboarding and things like that. A real strategy is a written out document that is agreed upon by the client before you actually go and execute the work that's in it. And if you're not getting a strategy that has something outlined, I suggest that you do. And once you've established that strategy, yeah, I think it's really important then to make sure it aligns with your company's brands or brand guidelines. Make sure it reflects your company's ethos and your messaging. And I'll end with, but if you're hiring someone to help you with that, if it's not internal or if it is internal, make sure that you don't have yes people and make sure that you are pushing the envelope a little bit. I think something that a lot of teams internally and agencies don't do well is they don't show the company where they can go. And if you don't show them where they can go, your competitors will take advantage of being a little bit more boisterous and they'll pass you. And so I think it's healthy to push it a little bit. And I can say that because in banking, we represent 5 banks nationwide. They are the most boring of all boring. And I say that to them all. And the reason that we're winning well with banks is because we're not being boring and we're pushing that envelope. So I'm going to shut up now and pass it off to these much smarter ladies.
Yeah, Andrea or Jessica, would either of you like to
Sure.
follow up?
Yeah, I mean, Shane and I are on the same wavelength. We've spoken before. I mean, strategy is so key. I can't tell you how many clients have come to me and said, yeah, we're doing social media, but it's not working. And it's okay, what are you doing? Well, we're just throwing up some posts. So that's not a strategy, A. And really looking at what are your goals? Are you trying to acquire new customers? Are you trying to interact with your customers? Are you just trying to build awareness? What are the goals? I also have several clients who have come to me and they have been, to Shane's point, working with an agency, but they have no idea what's going on. They're running digital ads and they're not seeing where those ads are going. They're not seeing performance. And so really being able to push the envelope and change up the strategy if it's not working, implement a strategy. And then I would say I'm probably the opposite of Shane in that I do have a hard time telling people like it is when they come to me with these ideas and, I'm going to do this or that. And their expectations are really unrealistic. And, it does take time. Just because you launch a digital ad campaign doesn't mean that you're going to see 1,000 new customers in a day, unless you're spending a lot of money. So really looking at the strategy and being patient and talking through with the client about their expectations and where they really could go and what that timeline looks like.
I love that, both of that. And it's interesting because my role is more on the recruiting side. So our goals are totally different, but it's still the same concept that you need to have a goal. What is that goal? Is it getting new customers? Is it for us, getting candidates, getting people to apply to jobs? Is it relationship building? Is it community building? What is that goal? And there may be multiple for different campaigns, but then what is the strategy to get you there? And I think I often have to tell people no, because what their goal isn't achievable via social media sometimes. And maybe it's that you'd have to spend too much money, or the audience that you're looking for isn't on the platform that is easiest to use, or, there's a number of reasons that social media may or may not work. So it's kind of setting those expectations with, for me, my client is internal, it's my recruiters, my hiring teams. But setting those expectations of what's possible, but then also helping them realize maybe something that they didn't, because they might think like, well, we want to put something on social. We want to put an ad on Facebook because that'll help us do X. It's like, well, maybe that's not going to do X, but you could do Y, and Y will help you if you layer on these other pieces to achieve that goal that you're after. So it's sometimes reframing and resetting the expectations and helping people to understand what is actually achievable. And just like you said, it's definitely not going to happen overnight. Like, you launch a campaign, the next day they're like, did it work? Like, we're going to need a minute.
Or they're checking it every day.
And like, I check it every day.
Yeah, I know at Milwaukee, we're having a lot of conversations with our clients around the difference between a community and an audience. A lot of brands talk about their community online when they're probably really talking about an audience. We typically try to use social media to promote opportunities for deeper engagement, like coming to an event like this, or joining a community platform, or providing contact information so that there's like a more personalized follow-up, just so that there can be two-way communication. I think moving from sort of a transactional relationship on social media to more of a relationship-based model. Now, obviously, as we just discussed, when there's a strategy, social media can be very beneficial. What have you maybe each found some of the biggest mistakes companies are making with social media? Have you seen instances where maybe their use has harmed the company or not benefited it? Andrea, would you want to start?
Sure. I think one, we already identified jumping in head first without having a plan and a strategy. You're just going to throw good money after bad. So that's a huge mistake. I see a lot of, especially small businesses, because they don't have the staff and they don't have the support. And so they just jump in and they spend all this staff time on it and they don't see results. And then they get out and then you don't hear from them for the next 6 months. So that's a huge mistake. We kind of already covered that. I would also say really, and Shane touched on this a little bit, what is your message? We start every project with storytelling and talking about what is the company's message? What is the individual's message? How does that message, how do we want that to be received? Are you a positive, uplifting? Do you want to be more serious? And really framing all of your content around that message. You shouldn't be straying from the message unless your company's moving into another arena. Shane talked about banks being very serious and kind of trying to change that narrative. I have a lot of clients that are just so nervous. They're just not sure what to say on social media. And really, we spend a lot of time diving into their personality, their customers, what their customers really value about them. And so that we can echo that and share that, and also have other, influential people amplify that on social media. So I think the biggest mistake, one, no strategy, and two, really figuring out what your voice is and your position is, so that you can relay that on whatever channel you're on.
I think to layer onto that would be using each platform properly. Like, what is the audience of each platform? Because Facebook is different than Instagram, is different than TikTok. Who's actually using that platform? There's crossover, sure, but figuring out which platforms would be the best for whatever your goal is. And then how do you make sure that you're tailoring that message and using your voice appropriately on each of those as well? Because who you're going to target on Facebook, you might use a little bit different language and definitely different types of content than what you're going to use on Snapchat or TikTok or even Instagram. I see so many organizations either for, kind of customer acquisition, or in my case, talent acquisition, where they're like, here's my post, I'm going to put it on everything and expect that it's going to work the same. Like putting hashtags on Facebook. I'm like, what's the point of that? It's not doing anything. So just making sure that that it's matching the audience, but it doesn't have to be wildly different. You can still have the same general piece of content, just sort of altered a little bit. Again, LinkedIn is going to be different than Twitter, is going to be different than Facebook.
You took one of mine. Damn it. No, I'll add on there. And I really agree with that, Jessica. And the right content is, like you said, like everyone makes one piece of ad creative and they blast it across all social. Like, no, make IG story specific ratio for IG story and all the way across, right? So I have three. I'm going to go through them real quick. Choosing between organic over paid. So a lot of companies invest way too much time into organic, which is getting very little engagement, very little traction. Especially if you're trying to sell a product or service, like if you have a budget and it's not that big, everything should be towards driving new revenue. New revenue leads to bigger budgets, which then leads to the ability to have organic. In organic, not to insult anyone's intelligence, that's just your daily posts, the stuff that goes out, you're building the community, right? Now you still need that, but I see a lot of companies way overinvest in that, when the truth is they should be investing in things on digital and social that are going to push new business. And then that leads into, this is a very, I don't care, I got to say it, right? So this is a very hard conversation I have with clients. Are you really a brand, right? So for me, a lot of companies think that they're a brand, and I ask them a simple question. If you stopped paying for ads and you stopped paying to push your name out there, would people remember and know who you are? And if the answer is yes, then you're a brand, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. If you're not, if they wouldn't know who you are, you're not probably really a strong enough brand yet. And almost kind of like, let's approach it then from the position of, we really need to make sure that we're telling the audience who you are much more than you're probably thinking. And when people assume they're a brand too early, they miss the part of storytelling, as Andrea said, in introducing people top of funnel to what they're really about. And most companies I see that think they're a brand and they're really not a strong brand are going for middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. And what that means is they're going for the call to action, and they're trying to close the deal way, way, way too early. So really have that honest conversation with yourself internally, with an agency that you're working with. And the last one is, nobody is testing enough content. You're not testing enough ad creative. I've seen this so many times. A company has a $50,000 budget for production. They make 1 to 2 videos. The videos are 3 to 5 minutes long. They put it out on social media. It gets 10 likes and they're like, WTF, right? Like, instead of that, why not create, maybe the body and the messaging of that video is the same, your call to action, but how do we get that down to 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds for YouTube, maybe at max? But how do we then get also 20 pieces of content out of that, have all different copy and headlines, and then test that? And I'll end with this piece on, you have to be willing to lose money to gather data to make better decisions later on. And so many companies, they're like, I give you $1, I expect 2 back. And the reality is, it takes 90 days to really learn just from the data. Now, don't get me wrong, you're going to get sales, you're going to get leads in that time frame, but you have to be willing to test and have campaigns fail so that you can shut off the losers and scale and make iterations on the winners, thus getting you a better CPM, a better ROAS, whatever the return is that you're looking for. And that's all I have on that segment.
It's that instant, they're looking for that instant gratification. And it's just, it's not, no one gets that.
Especially with e-commerce brands. There is one way that you can really hit the ground running, and that is if you really have a strong kick-ass brand already. So like when we started Cousin Subs Digital Marketing, they had never done any really paid ads on social. And I like to pound my chest and say, we're that great at Margle. The reality is Cousin Subs is one of the best sandwiches in the United States. And I didn't have to sell, they just had to do it, right? So if you have a really strong brand and people love your product and you're not doing social, I don't know what else to say, but you got to like, just do it, right? And then if you are going to do it, you can expect results a little bit sooner, probably.
I think, one other mistake that I've seen, and I mean, we've turned this into advice, right? Like, here's what you should do, because, don't make these mistakes others have made. But is to like jump all in with no support or help. Or, I mean, basically to say, you don't have to be on every channel. You don't have to do all the things. Do what you can do. Because I think the mistake people make is like, well, we have to be on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and whatever, which means, and there's like one person, right? Or like they have this tiny budget. Well, that means you're going to spread it too thin. You don't have any consistency. You really don't have, and you're not able to do anything of what Shane just said about like testing and trying and seeing what works, you know. So I think start small and build as much as you can. And then once you've mastered something and you've figured out, okay, this is what our audience wants to hear on Facebook, and these are the ads that work. Okay, now let's layer in Instagram. And now and just because somebody said that their kid's on TikTok doesn't mean your brand needs to be on TikTok. Can we recruit on TikTok? Like probably, but like nobody has the time to figure out how. So let's just pause on that and keep doing what we know is working for us. You know, you don't have to jump into everything.
And you probably shouldn't be on I mean, depending on the brand and who your audience is, you probably shouldn't be. I think it goes back to the strategy and really think about what are your goals? Who is your audience? What is your story? So a lot of planning. And I think that's hard for businesses when they're like, we're ready to jump. And okay, well, let's take a step back.
How do we go viral?
Yes. Oh my gosh. If I had a dime for every time somebody said that. Yes. So, you know, really just take a step back. And I think that's a hard conversation to have with a client is, you know, you need to invest in this. This isn't just a one-time deal, and really plan it out and be thoughtful about your strategy, and you will see results. But it's a building process.
And I want to add from kind of real quick on a different perspective, because I know we have a lot of businesses on here, but I also know there's agency owners. And I want to kind of hit on the biggest mistake for an agency. I would only do 3-month campaigns, and that was my scope of work for my invoice. And like, don't be afraid. Like right now, unless we're doing like one project-based test and it's 6 months, it's a year contract. And that's like the honest conversation you need to have up front with companies. Because again, you need that 3 to 6 month time frame to gather the data, to make the right changes, to make new creative and change it out. So don't be afraid. Don't pigeonhole yourself, because I would do that early on. And then right at the end of 3 months, I would finally start to get good traction. But they hadn't seen the results. So they'd be like, or what happens is they take all that data and they leave you. Right. So I'm just honest conversation. You do all the upfront work to build the ad account, and then they walk. So get those year-long contracts, and then you also build, you build really good rapport, and that carries over.
Yeah. I think I'll just add one mistake that I feel like I see, and that's if brands put a little too much, they rely too much on one particular tool or one particular platform. So as an example, we have some clients who do advocacy work and do digital advertising. And so Twitter banned political ads. Facebook has, changed a lot of their regulations around ads around social issues. So it's, really important to use social media in a way that allows you to reach those individuals in other ways and other methods. So trying to push individuals toward getting contact information, so you can have like a mailing list, things like that, so that, if Facebook decides to suddenly change their advertising rules, you're not left out in the cold, especially with some of those brands with that different kind of messaging. I think we'll move now to, what do you each envision as the future of social media, particularly for businesses? What are some trends you're seeing? What do you envision for the future? Does anyone want to start and kick us off? Maybe Shane?
Sure. I'm going to keep this short and sweet because I've already hit it a bunch of times. You got to start. When I started 5 years ago, Margot, I literally remember sitting down with my investors, and I'm like, I think I have a 1 to 2 year window to really hit this hard before companies fully embrace and start moving the necessary budgets to social media to make an impact. And wow, was I wrong? There are so many companies that still don't have a plan, right? And I'm talking big companies. So I'll flip that and say, don't feel bad if you don't have one, right? But get one. And so mine's simple. Just at least now know you should have a real strategy, not just a let's post every other day and see what happens strategy.
I think, how many times have we heard like Facebook's going away? Like Facebook is losing followers, like Facebook, nobody's using it. Like Facebook's not going anywhere. Social media is not going anywhere. It will continue to change and evolve. And so I think our strategies and how we're using the platforms, and especially how the algorithms change and how the ad, to Shane's earlier point, like working in recruiting, there's a lot of restrictions around Facebook and how you can target for employment ads. That doesn't mean it's not useful for us. It just means we have to be very thoughtful in how we're using it and very planful, and also set our expectations properly. So I think as these platforms continue to evolve and as things change in popularity, Snapchat used to be the one and now it's more TikTok. So whatever the next one will be, figure out how to use or not use it, and keeping with, the strategy that you already have, and what's working for you. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I hope that it continues to bring people together instead of divide people. Like that's my Pollyanna attitude towards it. And I think that if we are using it properly from a brand perspective and trying to create those engagements like you talked about, Wyatt, I think that it can continue to be powerful in our communities as well. But it also could go sideways. It definitely could go the other way if we let it, and if the platforms kind of let it.
Absolutely.
And I would say my perspective, and you can guess where I'm going to go, is really leveraging influencers as part of your strategy. You can do all the things right, but having that second level of verification, somebody to amplify your brand, somebody to amplify and stand behind your product, your service. And influencers, I feel like they get a bad rap because everyone goes to the TikTok, which is in the chat, and thinks it's, somebody doing something crazy on TikTok. It's not, doesn't have to be that. Every industry has an influencers, and they are on various platforms. So really looking at who's already following you, who's already engaged with you, who are your customers. I'm planning a grand reopening for a client here locally. And, of course they have this list of influencers that they want to go after, which is great. But let's look at who's already shopping here, who's already living and, wearing your merchandise. I mean, they're going to be your most, best brand advocates. So let's engage with them and really bring them into the inner circle and support them in supporting you. So I think really looking at who are those voices that can help amplify what you're already putting out there and what makes sense for your brand and where you want to go.
Yeah. I'll just add, I have a slightly different perspective on this, which is that, my hope for the future is that we have more kind of anti-social media platforms, meaning platforms that kind of lead you offline, lead you off social media, and, try to get you to facilitate more in-person one-on-one connection. And so I just feel like, especially coming out of the pandemic, I think a lot of people will be hungry for some socialization. So I hope that we get some platforms that encourage you not to just make friends online, but make friends offline. I'll plug Like Minded, which is a tool, a startup here in Milwaukee that is working on doing just that. So yeah, I'm hopeful that, even as social media evolves, that we start to add other types of interaction into the mix.
And I'm going to add something real quick why it goes into more of a mix. Maybe it's not necessarily offline. I saw a bunch of questions on the metaverse. I look at the metaverse, this is my opinion, I feel like it's still early. And you're talking about a guy who's majorly invested in NFTs and crypto and understand the whole space too much. I look at the metaverse as kind of like 95, 96 a little bit, internet. People were doing it, but it was, until we started seeing people going home every day to get on chat rooms and using the internet, that's when it took off. The metaverse, my friends aren't going home and putting on their Oculus headsets yet. It's not like the discussion. Once I start hearing those things, I think it's a really important time to have a plan then. And it's going to be a huge mess. So lots of money spent. Let others spend money learning the mistakes of advertising there if you're a smaller business before you jump full in, I think. So maybe I'm wrong on that, but.
I'll jump to like, what are some of the conversations? I know we've had a lot of, great conversations so far, but, what are some of the things that you're talking about with individuals in your company or with your clients today as you're advising them? What kind of conversations are you having with the people that you work with? Maybe Jessica, do you want to start?
Yeah, so again, my focus is really recruiting, and just to kind of back up a step with how social is like split up at Advocate Aurora. So I handle everything recruitment marketing, talent acquisition marketing. So I'm kind of, across the board with digital and our website and print pieces and all of that, including social media specific to recruiting. We have an entire brand team who does all the rest. And so there's a social media team who does all the rest of our social media. It's important for us to partner because we talked before about having kind of one brand voice. Now it's slightly different how we're going to talk to potential patients versus potential candidates. It's the same general tone, but there's different things that we're going to talk about and different things that we're going to highlight. So I guess all of that is to say, like, having partners is really, really important, whether that's internal or external, like if we're working with an agency or just how we're dealing with each other internally. I think a lot of the conversations I'm having lately, because I'm sure everybody's heard about like just how crazy the hiring landscape is right now, that there's a shortage of talent everywhere. Our applicants are down, and there's not a whole lot we can do to fix it. So a lot of my conversations are people saying, can we try a Facebook post? And it's me saying like, sure, but I don't know that it's going to do anything. Like, that's not the magic bullet. That's not the answer. And that's probably true across so many different industries and types of challenges that people face. They say, well, what if we try this? Like, we can try it, but don't expect that that's going to be your magic bullet. And I think for marketing in general, it needs to be an integrated campaign. It needs to be a whole bunch of different things put together in order to make a difference. People need to hear or see something 7 times before they're going to take action. And I have to remind people that changing jobs is life-changing. So they may need to hear it more than 7 times before they actually take action to apply or to say, like, I'm going to move my family across the country, or I'm going to totally, uproot my life to change jobs. So it's really just, again, setting expectations with people, and without saying like, no, it's not going to work, saying, yes, let's try it. Here's what we can expect, or here's what we can hope for. And also, like, here's how you can help that. Like, for me right now, it's, yes, I can do a Facebook post. And in order for me to do that, I need you to give me an employee testimonial, because to Andrea's point, like, that's what's going to make the most impact, is hearing from a real person something that they love. It's sort of a little bit of an ambassador twist. Ideally, that person's posting it themselves as well. But what we can do to say, here's a real person and what they love about their job, that's going to get more engagement. It's going to potentially, get more applicants. It's for sure going to get more eyeballs and more likes, comments, shares, that sort of thing. Sorry, that was kind of a rambling answer.
No, and I'll ask a follow-up question to you and to all of the panelists. Have you had any of those conversations either internally or with your clients around, maybe a tough conversation around, yes, we could put that on social, but I don't think this content or this CTA is strong enough, or like, I don't know that I can polish this enough to make what you're trying to say. I don't know that I think it's strong enough for the end user to hear. Meaning maybe that is, talking about a particular benefit or talking about a particular, deal, how have you approached those conversations?
Yeah, I'll say from my perspective, again, recruiting, which is different, but like the concept is the same. So sometimes it'll be, we have this job, like, so we have housekeeping positions at St. Luke's, we want to do a Facebook post. Like, yeah, I can put a Facebook post out or a LinkedIn post or whatever that says we're hiring housekeepers at St. Luke's. Wah, wah. So why does somebody want that job? What is different about being a housekeeper in healthcare than anywhere else? What is different about St. Luke's than anywhere else? What are the different positions that are available? And then that call to action, that one link you get, like, that's going to be effective. What should that link be? Because we have 20 different positions open. So I don't know that we want to link to one of those, what are we going to link to? So it's sometimes me pushing back to really dig in to get those differentiators so that, again, I can have a more meaningful post. And sometimes it's me, if they're saying, we need nurses at Sinai, like, yeah, you know what? We need nurses at all of our hospitals. So what can we do to make more of a brand awareness to say, here's what's great about being a nurse at Advocate Aurora, instead of we have this one job at this one location. And I think having a mix of both is good, where sometimes the content is high level and it's just sort of brand. And sometimes it's, here's a very specific thing that I want you to do. I think having that balance helps too. I would never have a feed full of like job, because then my audience is going to be like, screw this. I don't want to look at this anymore. I'm going to mute or unfollow.
Absolutely. Andrea or Shane, any conversations that you're having with your clients?
I would say similar to what Shane said, advice to agencies about, getting your client to commit to a certain amount of time. I do the same thing with clients about, you need to give me XYZ for me to make this into a great story. So clients that are, oh, I'm not really into being on social. Well, your story is this brand. So if you're not going to tell your story, then I can't help you. So I make sure that they share, what are the assets? What are the things that we're going to talk about? What is your time? You're the face of this brand. So if I'm going to book you for interviews, you need to be available. And I need you to reach out to these influencers because it's more impactful coming from you than it is coming from, your publicist or, another third party. So I same as Jessica said, I flip the script and I say, oh, yes, we can do this, but these are the things that I need in order for it to be successful. Otherwise, it's not worth doing. It's just putting out noise at that point.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I'll jump in and say that I agree with both Jessica and it. Is it Andrea or Andrea?
Andrea.
It's Andrea. Okay. All right. I was making sure. Want to make sure I was saying it right. Conversation I'm having the most right now is one, creating content that people actually want to engage with. So I think Gary Vee, for a lot of people that are part of that VaynerMedia Bro Club, mass posting, more is good. More, like, don't get me wrong, you can't have, I don't think there's enough good influencers talking about your company that, you should have as much as you can of that out there. I'm talking about like your organic posts, your daily posts. We're really starting to pull back on just posting for the sake of posting and really creating content that makes people want to come back to your page. And I think that's like, when you face maybe more boring industries, we do a lot of work for B2B companies. They're like, well, what can we post about that's, interesting? I'm like, well, we have to talk about things outside of what you're doing. So that leads into my second conversation, the biggest one we're having, which is YouTube. YouTube is now the second largest search engine, if you didn't know, next to Google. And so I'm amazed at how many companies don't think that it's a good spot to be when it's the second most searched engine, right? And so that leads back to content that people actually want to engage with. I'm gonna give a soft plug for North Shore Bank. If any of you want to go follow their YouTube channel, we just started it. And we're creating interesting stories for North Shore Bank that have nothing to do with money. So it's all on playmakers in the state of Wisconsin. It's all about how do you start small, large size businesses. It's all about how do you invest properly. It's all interesting content that people would actually watch, whether you're a bank or not, right? And so I always come back to, there's plenty of ways to tell fun stories and interesting content that gives you awesome brand awareness, that also makes you a desired endpoint for people to go to, let's face it, watch something while they're at work, while they're in the car, in bed. And so those are the two conversations I'm having the most. Content that matters and YouTube. How can we get you on there, whether it's pre-roll or actually creating content to drive people back to whatever desired endpoint you want.
Yeah. I'll just add that we're having a lot of conversations with clients around that kind of quality over quantity piece, meaning how do we create some, maybe smaller communities, maybe they're more exclusive communities that we can target advocates or prospective talent or prospective customers in a way that's a lot more relationship based, meaning rather than sending a post out to an entire group around like hiring or around a new product, is there a way that we can get people into a sort of community and offer them, you know, exclusive events or exclusive content, things that, you know, maybe it's one-to-one relationships with each other. So trying to find, you know, those kind of advocates within the sea, because a lot of people will say, oh, we want more Facebook followers, but, you know, does 6,000 Facebook followers mean anything if those individuals aren't engaged? You know, if you have a community of 30 and they're super engaged and they're coming to events and they're, you know, engaging with your content, in some ways that can be just as beneficial, if not more. So I think that's some of the conversations that we're having.
I think along those lines too, I'm just thinking, you know, the phrase, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything. It's like, if you don't have something good to post, don't post anything. Like, it's okay. You don't have to post Happy Thanksgiving. Like, just don't post anything. It's okay. No, you don't have something like relevant and it doesn't fit whatever your brand is and whatever, just don't post. That's okay.
Absolutely.
We should make that into a slogan. You don't have something good to post, don't say anything.
Absolutely. You know, one thing that, you know, we talked about, right, you know, in setting up the context for the event is that kind of outage of Facebook and Instagram back in October 2021. You know, how did that affect, you know, either your company or your clients? Have you noticed that, you know, social media has been more volatile or less reliable lately? And what kind of impact have you seen that had on certain businesses?
I'll start. I thought it was going to be actually a way bigger discussion than it's turned out to be. It's definitely impacted retargeting, remarketing, just based off of like interests and how deep you can get in what you're doing for social. But, you know, we had a conversation like last February, March internally. We sent out a letter to all of our clients saying, hey, this is coming. We don't want you to be surprised, but this could be a massive shift and we don't know what's going to come out of the other end. And I'm happy to say it didn't affect us as we thought. Same with Google this year in January, because I know little low key, I was a little bit nervous, but at the end of the day, this is how these companies make their money, marketing, right? So they're not gonna, there's always a loophole, right? There's always a way. And I challenge people also on this. Like, I know some people are like, I don't want my information out there. Honestly, it's already out there. So right? I want to have the best user experience possible. Like Nike is launching in Instagram here in the next 2 months, where you can actually upload your height, all your dimensions, pictures of yourself. And when you get served ads in the future, it's going to be you wearing the clothes. For me, I would rather have that than get served an ad by some company that doesn't know what I want, right? Like I don't want to get female beauty product ads if we don't have the ability.
You're looking at lamps and then you get ads for lamps for the next 6 months. You're like, no, I already bought the lamp. Like, stop showing me lamps. Show me in that shirt.
100%. That's it. And so what I don't think people realize is when we don't want that, you're going to still get, this is the biggest, here it is. I'm going to end with this. Everyone thought that they wouldn't get ads anymore. No, you're still going to get ads. You're just going to get ads on things that don't relate to what you like. So that's up to you. That's a personal opinion, right? Or preference. But I thought it was going to be a lot worse, and so far it's just been, it hasn't impacted as much as I thought. Maybe I don't know where it stands for you ladies, but
no, I would agree. And I think not social media necessarily, but same with the privacy changes and settings with Apple. Like I had so many job boards being like, okay, this is really going to affect like how we're able to do things, and we're not going to be able to track anything, and everything is going to fall off the face of the earth. And like, it was fine. Like, and I don't know if it's because people are like lazy and they didn't change their settings, or that they understand that in order to get personalized ads and to have, you know, there's a benefit to it. Yes, yes, your information is out there and people kind of know who you are, but that's the kind of risk reward, I guess. And maybe people understand that. I think it's probably more of the, like, they just don't understand it, so they didn't do anything, but it really didn't cause the shakeup that everybody thought. And I think,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, from my perspective in recruiting, really not a whole lot has changed. Not dramatically. It's been like over time.
No, 100%. And I think what people need to realize also, and I know we're getting on kind of security, like, your information was already out there for the past, 10, 20 years. The only thing you lose now is their ability to know what you're interested in at the moment. Like, all your personal information, third party it's out there, right? So I think people just aren't informed enough on, like, I don't think they're informed enough.
I think also too, you also have to realize that everyone's in the same boat. So your competitors have the same restrictions or same change. It impacts everyone. So I think that's where people were like, freaking out, but it's like, this isn't just for you. This is for everyone in your industry, and really just everyone. So it impacts everyone the same. I think it's also how you navigate it. And to both of your points, if I have clients who were confused. And so if you have somebody to help you understand, because it is confusing. And so if you don't have that internal, support, and again, I've had people come to me from past agencies and they're like, I just don't know what's going on. Their agency's not telling them what's going on. So I think it's really just understanding, and then understanding that everyone in your industry is in the same boat.
Yeah. We're going to jump into Q&A next. So if anyone in the chat wants to ask any questions, but before we jump into chat, I think we can end maybe on a positive note in terms of if each of you would want to share a recent success story with either your company or your clients, maybe a change, a time when you pivoted and saw success. So we can each take a turn, but maybe do you want to start, Andrea?
If I can come off mute, yes. I would say this is like a success story wrapped in a lesson. So I had a client who was a startup. She launched a business almost 2 years ago now. She came to me for influencer marketing. She had her heart set on this one particular influencer. And that was her goat. Like that, this woman was her everything. She wanted to work with her. She felt like if she worked with her, her business would just skyrocket. And so, I want to please the client, but also make sure she's successful. So I did engage with that person while we were negotiating. I had her send this person product. Meanwhile, I'm doing all the other things, working with other influencers, working press. The moral of the story is this influencer that she wanted did an unboxing. We didn't pay for it. She sent her product. She did an unboxing on her channel. Crickets. She got maybe 5 new followers. No sales, nothing came out of it. Meanwhile, all the other activities that we were doing, one of them was local press that she was like, I guess we'll do it. I said, I really think it's a strong story. This is who you are. This is you're a local girl. I think you should do a press. Sold out. Her website crashed when the article hit. And so I think it's just a moral of the story is to really trust people and, really look at what your story is and don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's a social media. You don't have to be on all the platforms, but it's a strategy. Again, what makes the most sense, what things combine together. And then really the basis of it is your story. And that's the strongest element. And so really work on your story and it'll pay off in the end.
I just want to add to that. I was going to say earlier, I think the biggest lesson is to listen to people and trust people who know what they're doing, because social media changes every minute, every day. And because it's terribly complicated, like we think it's simple, but there's so much nuance to it and there's so much to learn. And as soon as you learn it, it changes. It's like, sometimes you have to just put trust in people. So if you're a brand and you're looking for help with this and you're engaging an agency, trust that they know what they're doing. That's why they have a successful business. If you have a person like me in your business who this is my job day in, day out, like sometimes you just have to trust that I know what I'm doing. And not that you need to have blind trust, but it's really hard to explain it. And sometimes I get frustrated because I have to spend time explaining instead of just doing. Like, just let me show you, instead of me trying to explain why it works. Like, it's okay. I don't go to a heart surgeon and be like, talk me through every step. Like, I just trust that they know what they're doing, right? So I guess my success story then is, I don't have one success story lately, but just are leaning into these employee stories and these employee testimonials. And over time, I've figured out a way to make it kind of a simple process, because we have 75,000 people and I can't like go out into the world as much anymore. I can't go into hospitals like I used to be able to get these stories. So, it's a form that they fill out, they answer some questions, they email me a picture, I create the post from there, and they typically do very well. And not only does it help us from a recruiting standpoint and an employment brand standpoint, but it's a little bit of recognition for that person to be kind of tapped on the shoulder to say like, hey, will you be the face of a brand for a day? They really like that. And typically those posts do really well. I make sure to do a little bit of an ad in the area where they're from, because their friends might see it and be like, oh my gosh, you're famous, because it's coming out from our brand post. So just, I found a tactic that kind of works, and then I'm leaning into it.
Wonderful. Shane?
Yeah, so success, I kind of two pieces of motivation, I guess, or one maybe suggestion. I'm going to lean more on if you work in an agency or in marketing. Don't chase logos, chase businesses that really need your help. And so I see a lot of agencies chase the big name to have on their website. I did that my first 2 years, and I lost RFP after RFP. And it's very hard to bridge that gap with payroll. The second, I started going after companies that really needed my services. And a lot of those were really boring: flexible packaging, banking, insurance, you name it. You learn very quickly they have just as big a budgets as everyone else, and they probably pay a little bit faster than the big brands, right? So I thought that was really interesting. The second piece is to not think that you're too small. Our largest client success for Margot's side is our largest client's Humana. And they're dealing with, we do the Facebook display and ad creative, or we do ad creative for Facebook and display for Google. And we're up against Chicago, New York, LA agencies. And this is the one thing the biggest shift I think I've seen is big companies are somewhat ditching agency or record model, and they're choosing boutique. So who's the best digital marketing agency? Who's the best PR and influencer agency? Who's the best at traditional marketing, billboard, radio, right? And kind of, now I understand it's a lot more to manage, but I think if you get really smart businesses, it should be easy, right? It should be easy working with a vendor for you. So not being afraid. I always thought that, I know it's kind of a flip from the first thing I said, don't chase big logos, but also don't be afraid when those opportunities arise, like to just know that you can go after it. And I already hit our big success of the year was Cousins. We did over 7 figures in new online orders for them on their app. And even I was surprised at that. So, but it's been really fun.
Yeah. I'll just share one quick story from one of our clients that works in the advocacy space. We've seen really good success leveraging social media to get, hundreds and thousands of contacts into phone to action, which is a tool that allows, them to email and text and talk to, their lawmakers. And in addition, we've helped kind of augment their digital strategy with more curated experiences in person and, some community events and, all again, in the name of going deeper than a like on a Facebook post. And so again, I think, that's the success story, is kind of taking a holistic approach. Before we jump into Q&A, does anyone have any recommendations or resources that you'd like the audience to check out?
Not gonna lie, I had a hard time with this. And I'm not here to I think resources are so tough because you want to refer someone to something and they don't always align. Like Gary Vee is a good example. I pick and choose the content. I feel is best for what I need, but some of his stuff is way off. So I hate to say, go watch this person, learn more from them when it doesn't always align with what my principles are. I don't know if I have an answer on that. I really tried to think about it.
I think the moral of that story is, there's no one right thing. You have to find different things. But I will say, from a recruitment marketing standpoint, which I understand is like a super niche thing, and many of you are probably like, I didn't even know that was a thing. If it's something that is interesting to you and you want to learn more, and kind of the nuances of recruitment marketing versus consumer marketing, I'll put the link in the chat here. Rally Recruitment Marketing, I think, is a great resource. There's like blog articles, they do a lot of webinars. They have a couple times a year, like a full day virtual seminar thing with lots of different speakers. So a ton of different type of information relating to Google, social, websites, just creating an employee value proposition, like all of that is kind of there. I think it's one of the better resources for the sort of niche industry that I'm in. And I'm not just saying that because they've published a couple articles that I wrote. It's also because I think it's a great resource.
I would say the same. Anything that I say, I feel like same as Shane, it might be a little self-promoting, but also there's just so many different, it really depends. I have clients that are in fintech, so I follow a lot of fintech marketers. I work with clients in the beauty industry, so I follow different resources there. I think it really just depends on what area you're working in and what you're hoping to achieve. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot on, there's very few folks who are doing influencer and PR together. So there's not a whole lot of resources. Maybe we'll come up with some more this year. We can share them with you all. But I think really looking at, don't be dismayed by trends and get sucked down the shiny object, path. Look at what's trend, what's going on in your industry and what makes sense for your business, and what area you're in, because it's, it could really just vary so much depending on the size and what sector you're in.
I just dropped 2 newsletters that I really enjoy into the chat. One is Seth Godin. He has a daily newsletter that's usually really, really short, but usually thought-provoking. And then TLDR Marketing, kind of a nice overall roundup of some marketing stories. Again, I like that they're both pretty short and pretty skimmable, because I know, especially in marketing, we're all very busy. And this is those are some nice tools that at least kind of thought-provoking. So all right, let's see if we have any questions in the chat. Let me see. Here's one, and I think this might be for you, Andrea. Interested at all in how you are dealing with, kind of the trend of some consumers losing trust in influencers, and how you are kind of still, working within that.
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of that losing trust is warranted, because you do see people who are clearly getting paid by a brand. They're not vested in the product, or they're not vested in the brand. And it comes across as inauthentic. I mean, that's just, so that's rightfully so. Where I really stress with clients is we need to find the right people. And it doesn't always have to mean you have to go big. Just because they have 1 million followers, they're not engaged. I mean, most likely the data shows that they're not engaged if they have that many followers. So I really look at those nano micro influencers, really looking at their engagement rate, really looking at how they are engaging in the comments and how they're reaching out, to make sure that they're right. And also that they fit with what you're trying to market. And looking first at your customers. I did an activation with a furniture boutique, and we were doing something over the holidays. And that's where we started. We looked at who's already following their store, who's engaged, who's shopping in their store, because that also made it easier to say, can you come down and do something in store? Because they were going to come down anyways. So really look at who's already in your circle, start there. It's great to always have those folks who are out that might do well for you, but like I said, they need to be engaged, and it really needs to be authentic. And I would vote for authenticity over followers any day, hands down. And I think that's folks who follow that formula are going to see the results, and people won't see it as influencer. They'll see it as people really engaging with your brand.
That's that quality over quantity again, I think. And I would echo that and say even internally, because one of the things that we're trying to do for recruiting and for our employment brand is to have these sort of internal ambassadors and influencers. And whenever we're looking for somebody to feature or to kind of tap to share more of their story on their own platforms, it has to be a combination of people who are good at social and have a lot of followers, but also people who are just super, super engaged in the brand and, you know, are very engaged with their job and their work and love Advocate Aurora Health. We can teach them how to use social, and we can teach them how to reach more people with their posts, or we can, you know, help them to amplify their story. But if it's just somebody who has 1 million followers, like Andrea said, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be successful. And it doesn't mean that they care or that anybody cares what they're saying either about your particular product or service or whatever it is.
The passion isn't there. And I would say also working with NGOs where I don't pay the influencers. I mean, that's the baseline. They have to be passionate about the cause because we don't pay them. So they're in it for the right reasons, and we're not going to work with somebody who's not. So I think that should be the baseline. But you know, what makes the most sense for you and who's already in your circle. I love brand advocates, employees as brand advocates. I mean, that's who else already knows and who else is already believing it. It's really just, you know, can you engage them to do a little bit more? Or like Jessica said, you know, maybe you just need to teach them something and then they can be even better brand advocates.
Here's another question. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, ways in which social media impacts maybe the customer service or interactive sides of your business or for your clients? And I know we probably all have stories about, you know, the comments that people leave or the questions that, you know, you get as a social media manager. So anything that you might want to chat about on that side, and maybe if there's any advice or nugget that you could leave for those on the line in terms of how to deal with some of that.
I mean, mine's pretty simple. You respond with kindness, and if it's offensive, you delete it. I mean, I don't know. I think the bigger conversation that you have to have with yourself, or if you're an agency working with the client, is helping them, again, expectations. Andrea said it earlier. We lay out all the expectations. People are going to disagree with you, right? You could donate $100 to a charity and someone will find a way to say that you're being self-serving when really it's with good intent, right? So just be prepared. Not everyone's going to agree. And then, and you have to be able to swallow that and stomach that. And then when people do respond with negative things, assuming it's not extremely out of character, we just respond with a thank you for taking the time to share your opinion. I'm sure there's more examples beyond just that, but that's what I work with, Jessica and Andrea.
I once saw a post and it was about a little girl. She was maybe 10, and she had started a nonprofit to collect teddy bears to send to the troops because her father had died serving. And there was a negative comment on that post. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, that is the most heartwarming, like, genuine thing ever. And still somebody's going to find something negative to say. So it happens, right? But I think the other thing that I have to help people understand is you can't be afraid of that. Like, it's going to happen and it's going to pass so quickly that sometimes you just let it pass. Like somebody, I mean, right now there's a lot of posts, even on our, I'll say we have these jobs in whatever town, and like, I'm sure you do because you're mandating vaccines, and there's all this vaccine talk, and it's kind of irrelevant to what our post is. We just let it be. I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to respond, or take it offline if necessary, or take it off the page if necessary. But I think that the positive comments and positive community engagement far outweighs the negative for the most part. And a lot of it is just neutral. So it's okay. And I think just being prepared for it and not being afraid of it a lot of people don't want to do something because they're afraid of the negative consequences. And often the negative consequences aren't that bad. And like, from my perspective, a lot of times it's people saying, well, I don't want to post anything personally on LinkedIn because what if this bad thing happens? Like, it's probably not going to.
What if the LinkedIn universe implodes?
Yeah. Or it's, what if then one of my patients finds me? I'm like, well, they also could Google and find you. So like, it's okay.
I would say you hit the nail on the head. I can't tell you how many times people have said, well, you know, I don't want to be on one side or the other. I want to stay very neutral and I want to come across, it's like, okay, it doesn't matter how neutral you think you are. There's always going to be haters and they're going to comment. And honestly, if you get to the level where you're getting, you know, people with some type of reaction, I mean, that means that people are engaging with your content. So you've become relevant at that point and people are engaging. So don't be afraid. I think, like everyone said, really just pull back that knee-jerk reaction to say something nasty and respond with kindness. Or you could also wait a minute and your community will respond for you and they will quell that, those negative.
And just remember that comments are engagement. And so it's still helping. It's still helping to spread your message.
And sometimes if you have a really great community around you, they will step into that kind of community management role themselves and start like, you know, kind of, you know, rallying around your brand. I think we have
some brands want to start it. Look at the My Pillow guy and look at Penzies, Penzi Spices. I mean, they're there for it, right? So, yeah, that's a little extreme, but they lots of times companies are. I'm seeing more and more companies not being afraid to voice, which is something I like to see. But again, assuming that everyone C-level up is on board. Lots of times the director of marketing, VP of marketing, okays something a little bit more edgy, and then the backlash that comes from that, I'm like, well, we should have had those discussions before we posted, but you approved it, you know. So, but anyways,
I think we have time for one more question. We've seen a shift in the type of content that people are engaged with lately. So everything seems to be getting shorter, snappier, more visual, more video. How do you suggest, you know, businesses who might already have some strained capacity, you know, keep up with this type of popular content while also, you know, making sure that the brand comes across?
I think it's authenticity too. And I think that that's beneficial. Like when, I think it was Shane mentioned the 5-minute videos earlier, like nobody's going to watch a 5-minute video, just nobody. So there's good and bad about that, I think. And again, like my experience is recruiting. And I think about 8 years ago, if we wanted a recruiting video, it cost at least $20,000 to $30,000. It was a 2 to 3 day shoot. It was hair and makeup. It was all the lighting. It was everything in order to make it, you know, look really polished and to showcase the brand. People don't necessarily want to see that anymore, at least not for certain purposes. But the like shaky cell phone video walking into work is going to get a ton of engagement, and it's 10 seconds long. So while yes, the content has shifted and now we want a lot more and we want it to be shorter and snappier, we also want it to be more authentic. So it still requires planning and it still requires thoughtfulness, but it doesn't require as much production. So you can create more in the same amount of time with probably less budget. And then you can use that budget to help amplify the message instead of just producing the content. I think same thing even just for photography.
Yeah, you kind of went right where I was going to go, Jess. So I think, so I'll add a little bit of different of knowledge because I would have repeated that or said that. It was well said. I'm going to break it down for you real quick in top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Top of funnel is appropriate. That's where you want to have your best video. You're telling someone, that's someone who doesn't know about your brand. It's a big awareness play. Maybe you're doing something 15 to 30 seconds on who you are, why they should have interest in you. If you're placing the ad, you're already placing it in front of people that you know have an affinity to purchase what you're selling or become a lead for what you have, right? So that is where I feel video is strongest, is at that top of funnel, brand awareness, who's here we are. Let's talk about middle of funnel and bottom of funnel now. And middle of funnel, we've learned historically, video is not the win. Static images with compelling offers and and good copy and headlines, everyone assumes video sells more. And really, we've learned through spending millions and millions of dollars a year on ad spend on social that really good static images, and that's just images. So middle of funnel, we like to say, that's where you want to have your reviews, testimonials, how you feel when someone uses your product or service. That doesn't have to be in video, maybe a review in video, but really talk about, the results people are having and their experience. And if that doesn't convert, everyone should know middle of funnel should be where you convert the most. That's bottom of funnel is where you get those people who didn't fill out the lead form, didn't purchase the product, left an abandoned cart. That's where you hit bottom of funnel, and that's your hardest call to action. And that is typically never video for us. That is BOGO, buy one, get one. Here's an offer, respond within the next 24 hours and get X. So call to actions are bottom, but I would say 2/3 of content is perfect in just photography, static, still images. And then video can be the other, but don't overplay video because you'll spend a lot more on production and you might not get the results you want.
And I would echo everything that both Jessica and Shane said. I would say, going back to one of our earlier points, look at the data. So this is where your analytics come into play. Maybe you're pushing hard on video, or maybe you're pushing hard on one particular image, and you can see it's just not performing. So that's the time to let it die. So looking at the data, and then this just makes me cringe every time. We'll have, clients come to us, and I would say, look at who's delivering the message. So if you are doing video or static photos, people will come and say, well, our CEO, your CEO is boring and not relatable to your audience. So who else, going back to, Jessica has her brand advocates, her employees, the nurses, that's who we want to hear from. We don't want to hear from the CEO. So who's delivering the message and who's being featured in the content? So the authenticity, looking at the data, and then really looking at who's delivering it. So yes, things are getting shorter, but all these factors kind of come into play as well.
Well, we're at time. So I just wanted to once again say thank you to each of our participants in today's discussion. I believe we've been dropping their LinkedIns in the chat, so feel free to connect with each of them on LinkedIn. I'll just share that our next event will take place on February 22nd. Milwaukee will be discussing hybrid work pitfalls and kind of do an update on the Anyplace Workplace, featuring Milwaukee's CEO, Angela Damiani, and Nuance CEO, Amanda Daring. We will share that link as well as a recap video. We've been recording this session, and so we'll have that video shared back to all attendees in case you want to watch it again or share it with anyone in your network. And then I believe we are going to launch a poll, Lauren, that we have some themes that we may discuss in future events. So please vote for any that you are interested in hearing more about. All right. Oh, Lauren said that there might be an issue with the poll. Let me see. I'm going to launch it.
I'm going to say, Wyatt, great job moderating, brother. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe I was able to just launch the poll. So yeah, we have some themes that we might discuss in future events. So if there's any that you're interested in hearing more about, let us know before you jump off. Today's session has been recorded, as I mentioned, so we'll send that to in the recap email to you all. Again, thank you to everyone who joined us today, and everyone have a wonderful day.